Rodgers and the Pack owned. The 49ers continue to be injury prone. The Saints and Bucks had a fight. The Jets, Dolphins, and Cardinals won in Excite. And how many points did the Colts score? Known. Welcome to the Mish. Alrighty. Welcome to week 3 of the Mish. Answer a couple questions right off the bat. Yes, I am outside. Did I steal this shirt from Owie? Maybe. Who's to say? Am I wearing pants? Again, who's to say? But you know, I'm just enjoying the weather out here. Finished work for the day and quickly whipped together my notes and everything for this week, and I'm ready to go. But before we jump in, obviously we're going to crack open a brewski, and this is a special beer because it was a gift from Bruce from the draft party, a Stilt Stepper, a hazy IPA brewed right here in Green Bay, Wisconsin, Copper State Brewery. So and also just so you guys know, the dogs are literally feet from me. They can never seem to leave me alone during these episodes, so hopefully they're not too big of a distraction. Hopefully I don't have to stand up. But yeah, we got the brew poured, and yeah. Also, I noticed the last couple of weeks the audio was a bit choppy, and I think that was just because the microphone is too close to my mouth, and so I did move it farther away. I think it's right here for those, and I just happened to kind of put it so it blends in with the shirt, and maybe I'll wear the shirt every week just because it's so nice to clip onto this, whereas in the past I was clipping it on the outside of my shirt, or sorry, inside the collar, and this might actually help as well. But I'm gonna take a quick sip, and we will jump into the episode. So yeah. Also, it's just really nice being outside, and I like this camera angle. Normally I set up lighting as well, but since I'm outside, there are some clouds right now, but since I'm outside, I'm not setting up any lighting, so that's another thing I don't really have to worry about. So also something I get right, jumping off onto the thing right away. I should have mentioned this the first 2 weeks, but I completely forgot. There are still a number of folks that have yet to pay the buy-in for this league for this season. Obviously, there are some that have made the buy-in, but there is a number of people, and as I count it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 folks. If you are thinking you're one of those people, just contact me. Let me know. I'll let you know if I have you marked down as paid. If I have received your payment and I don't have you marked down, also let me know, because I have been known to forget to mark people down. So that is the business. Jumping into the trade, there's one trade which actually just went through this morning as of the recording of this episode. Hey, dogs, they almost bumped into my recording setup. Oh my gosh. Okay. There was one trade. It was a 4-team trade that involved, I believe, 11 individual items, which is players and picks. And I will break it down. It was between me, Colin, Adam, and Sam. And I'll quickly just give the genesis of this trade. Obviously, Trey Lance was my quarterback. He broke his ankle, and he is done for the season, which left me without a quarterback. So, obviously, I could have gone to the waiver wire, pick up a quarterback, which is probably what most people would have done. But I was just like, well, maybe there's a team that's got 2 good quarterbacks and I can get one. So I saw Sam had Tua Tagovailoa and Jalen Hurts. I'm like, hey, Sam, you interested in potentially trading one of those quarterbacks to me? I can offer Jonathan Taylor. He said, yeah, but I'm not really that big of a fan of Jonathan Taylor. I'd be more interested in these other guys, such as, oh boy, hey, doggies, such as Austin Eckler or Joe Mixon. So I messaged Colin and Adam, as those two are the owners of those 2 players. I'm like, hey, interested in trading Mixon / Eckler for Jonathan Taylor. and got the conversation going. And then eventually everyone was involved, and this is what we ended up with. So I gave the aforementioned Jonathan Taylor, love you, JT, Chris Godwin, and Curtis Samuel, and in return I received Jalen Hurts, so I got my quarterback, A.J. Dillon, Dameon Pierce, a 2023 eighth to make my total of 4 for that round, and a 2023 ninth. So obviously Jonathan Taylor, I think was probably the best player involved in the trade. You could argue Jalen Hurts, but obviously I had a big sentimental attachment to Jonathan Taylor. Had him from the very first draft that he was in the league, and I just decided it was time to move on, not because I wanted to, but because I needed the depth and a good quarterback. So I got Jalen Hurts. I like that a lot. Hey, stop it. They just spilt my beer on my foot, so that's lovely. Anyway, A.J. Dillon, borderline RB1 at the moment. Hopefully he can get up into that RB1 status, and I like his upside should Aaron Jones go down. And then Dameon Pierce, rookie, but he's slowly getting increased work. And then the picks are just a little bonus. So obviously Godwin and Curtis Samuel are also pretty good. Both kind of dealing with, well, I guess Samuel currently not dealing with injury, but could be any day now. And then Chris Godwin still kind of dealing with injury, and who knows if that ACL is completely healed up. So overall, I do like my trade. I think it'll work out well for me. Colin gave Joe Mixon, Dameon Pierce, and a 2023 eighth, and he received Jonathan Taylor. I believe Jonathan and Joe are probably pretty close, but they're relatively close to each other, just in terms of potential for this season. And then Dameon Pierce is a pretty solid, I think, as well. Could potentially be good by the time the season ends, and then obviously the eighth. I do think Colin obviously got the best player in that trade, but what did he give up? 2 solid running backs. Joe Mixon, I think, is pretty solid, obviously. I would have actually been happy with that because that trade was just strictly between Colin and I. I would have been happy with that. It didn't involve a quarterback, but, if that was what had happened, I would have been okay with that too. So, overall, I think Colin, obviously, like I said, got the best player, but I may have overpaid just slightly, but that's Colin's part. Adam gave Austin Eckler, A.J. Dillon, and a 2023 ninth for Joe Mixon, Josh Jacobs, and Curtis Samuel. Mixon and Eckler are probably pretty close. I think I would give that slight edge to Eckler, just for the season-long outlook. Better offense, gets a lot of receiving work, all that jazz. And then A.J. Dillon, Josh Jacobs. I could have gotten Jacobs in this trade if I worked it differently, but I do like A.J. Dillon slightly better. I do think Josh Jacobs is pretty safe, but I don't think he has the ceiling that Dillon has. And then Curtis Samuel, playing really well right now, the number one, I think, receiver in terms of targets and everything for Washington. So we'll see if he can stay healthy and keep it up. And I think he could definitely have a good season. And then the ninth round pick he doesn't have anymore. Moving on to Sam. He gave Jalen Hurts and Josh Jacobs, and he received Eckler and Godwin. Sam had 2 quarterbacks, didn't need both of them, so why not trade one away, which was my basis for this whole trade. And Josh Jacobs, I think, was his RB2 or something. I can't quite remember. I don't remember who Sam is. I should just have it in front of me, shouldn't I? But I will quickly just do that. Give me 1 second. I will just talk about Eckler and Godwin. Godwin, like I said, he's on a good offense. Could definitely be a very solid, productive running or receiver this season. And, he just has to stay healthy, and that's pretty much it for him. Obviously, like I said, good offense. It's really just the injury risk that is being carried with Chris Godwin. All right, we have Sam's team here. And so we've got Zeke over there. So I guess Eckler is now your number 1 running back. And now, so Eckler and Zeke, but then you also had Tyler Boyd, and then Isaiah Spiller. But yeah, you definitely upgraded, I think, at running back from Mixon or Jacobs to Eckler. So pretty good there for you, Sam. Okay, moving us on to, come on, Sleeper. I'm going to take a quick sip while I wait for this to load for a second. We're almost in. Don't you worry. This is... Oh, God, you dogs. I thought they would bother me less when I came outside, but no, they just happen... Or not happen. I know they're freaking a nuisance. Sometimes, obviously I love them, but they can be a pain. All right, first up, me versus Lincoln. I thought I had a shot at this, but I did, let's just say it, awful. I said last week, I think, there's only up from here. No, I went down. Not only did my quarterback get injured, but a lot of my guys did absolutely terrible. Darnell Mooney, 0.6 points. I think on the season I have just about as many receiving yards as he does. In fact, I might even have more because he had -4 yards this week, and I believe he had 0 last week. So I'm a better fantasy player than Darnell Mooney. Good thing I traded for him, but, he could turn it around. But yeah, not a very good performance from me. Great performance from Lincoln. He ended up winning 154.93 to 64.5. Well, 64.55, but might as well shortchange myself. Moving us on to Colin versus Caleb. This one was far closer, a difference of about 11 points. Not quite as low scoring as mine, but not quite as high scoring as Lincoln. Solid performances all around. Comeback player Kyler Murray scored 26.88. So very good from him. And then Mike Williams on the other side, bounced back game, 25.3. And Tyler Lockett, 19.7. So pretty good. And then there's a Tampa Bay defense, scored 27 points. Pretty good stuff. Colin got the win, 118.38 to 107.41. Moving us on to Michael versus State Farm. This one was also fairly close. Ooh, could you imagine if Caleb and Michael played each other? That would have been a difference. 0.09. Pretty crazy stuff. But it was not that matchup. It was not quite as close as the previous matchup. Pretty solid performances all around. I think the highlight of both teams was Amon-Ra St. Brown. Why couldn't we had that production from our St. Brown? But that's all right. 39.4 points from him. Not too shabby on this other side as well from Christian Kirk, 25.8. But yeah, overall fairly good performances. In the end, State Farm got the win, 121.5 to 107.5. Which moves us on to Sam versus T-Corn. This one, or did I? Yeah, Sam versus T-Corn. And this one was also fairly close. Man, could you imagine if T-Corn had played State Farm? That would have been a difference of 0.31. Man, a lot of close scores in terms of other teams to other teams. Not quite me, but that'll happen. Good performance from Jalen Hurts, 33.02, my new quarterback. Quite excited about him. And then also T. Higgins did pretty well, 19.1. Other than that, pretty average, I would say, performances from Sam's team. On T-Corn's side, Justin Herbert playing through that rib injury with that crazy throw. I don't know if you saw it, but it was a tight spiral. Right on the money. 24.46 from him. Saquon came back to earth a little bit. 11.8, still decent, but not that crazy, like 40 or whatever he had. Amari Cooper got into the action, though. 25.1 from him. 13 points from Breece Hall. And, pretty decent other scores as well. Final score from this one, T-Corn beat Sam 121.81 to 104.42. Man, almost had another spillage. These two do not know personal space. Next, Brian versus Fiala. Another close matchup. This one could be the closest on the week, a difference of just about 4 points. Very good performance from Lamar Jackson, 41.62. And the rest of the team did all right. Not as well as you would have hoped, I'm sure. Alexander Fiala. What's up with Kyle Pitts, right? Only What did he get? 3.9 points? Not that great. Over on the other side, though, decent performance from Brian's tight end. 17 points from Darren Waller. And some other decent performances. Damian Harris, 16.7. And Matt Stafford coming up with 20.88. Decent score there from Matt. In the end, Brian got the victory, 114.38 to 110.22. Moving us on to Bruce versus Adam. This one was not very close. Not quite as far of a gap, I think, as my matchup, but nonetheless, still not very close. We'll just touch on some of Adam's highlights, bright spots, that is. Austin Eckler, 18.4, pretty good. A.J. Brown could have been better, 11.9. And then not bad from Pat Fryerme with 12.2 points. Tried to get him in that trade, but ended up getting Bobby Tunyon. And then 11.75 points from the San Francisco defense. So those are the best points from Adam's side. Meanwhile, over on Bruce's side, we had some crazy performances. Rashad Bateman, 20.8. You thought that was crazy. Try Tony Pollard, 19.8. You thought that was crazy. Try 29.68 from Josh Allen. You thought that was crazy. Try 32.3 from Nick Chubb. You thought that was crazy. Try 42 points from Tyreek Hill. Crazy stuff. Tyreek and Waddle, I believe, first teammates that had like 2 receiving touchdowns and over like 100 yards in the same game. Crazy stuff. Bruce ended up getting the victory, and I believe the highest score on the week. Looks to be that way. 170.03 to 97.21. Pretty crazy stuff. Which moves us on to the final matchup, and I don't believe if I forgot anybody. Abby versus Derek. Where are you guys at? This one was also not that close. Probably the third biggest blowout of the week. We got Kirk Cousins, a measly 10.84. Those guys in the Minnesota should really get a better quarterback. They used to have this really good guy, Stephon Diggs. He scored 44.8, so pretty good, not quite enough. To spoiler alert, give Derek the victory. He fell in second place in this matchup. Deontay Johnson, respectable 13.7. And Devin Duvernay, 12.2. He could be a pretty good player over there in Baltimore. Almost just as impressive, if not a little bit more so. Sammy Watkins, 12.3. Zach Ertz, 15.5. Pretty solid. Debo got 14.7. I'm sure he'll be playing a lot of running back coming up. Cooper Kupp, just a measly 30.8 points from him. Aaron Jones got that 32 points. In the end, Abby got the victory, 143.08 to Derek's 108.79. That will conclude last week's matchups, and before we get into the power rankings, I'm going to take a quick sip with this beer that's like a third empty. I tell you, those dogs. No respect. All right. And, I feel like sometimes I spend a lot of time on the power rankings when I talk about these teams in the last week's matchup, and as well as the future matchup. So I'm just going to breeze through that, and I've said that before, but this time I'm really just going to breeze through it. Number 14, if you score the lowest points in back-to-back weeks, you can't help but put yourself at 14. So I'm at 14. Number 13, we've got Adam. Number 12, we've got Sam. Number 11, Derek. 10, Michael. Number 9, we've got Abby. 8, Caleb. 7, Lincoln. So I think he had the second most points on the week, so pretty good. Number 6, we've got Brian. 5, Colin. Now he's got JT. So good stuff for him. Hopefully, maybe not. We'll see. Number 4, we've got Fiala. 3, Bruce. 2, State Farm. And number 1, of course, we've got T-Corn. It'll be crazy when those two go up against each other. Yeah, I cannot wait. It's going to be a barn burner. But just wait. That's going to be the week where both of them score terribly and they could have been beaten by anybody. But no. Oh, lovely. First up, I am facing T-Corn this first matchup. My team is looking a bit different than it did last week. Do have Jalen Hurts, but do not have my sweet baby Jonathan Taylor. But I have a couple of new running backs, Damian Pierce and A.J. Dillon. I'm hopeful for those guys. Decent matchup for Damian, but Dillon's going up against Tampa Bay. We'll see how he can do. Obviously, T-Corn's got great running backs, Javonte and Saquon. Decent matchups for those two as well, so we'll see how well they can do. Pretty much the rest of my roster is the same. I'm starting Ayuk, Gabe Davis, and Brandon Cooks right now, so I just realized this. I'm rocking the double Pack or double Texan. I could be rocking the double Bill if I put James Cook in, but I'm not going to do that because I also have Gabe Davis. But Big Bob, we'll see how he can do. He's slowly getting more work, and I'm hoping it's another increase this week. But then on the other side, we got Pity City and Brees Lightning. We'll see how those two can do. Pittman coming back from being out last week, potentially. I mean, I wouldn't be upset if he missed, but that's all up to him, I guess. We'll see if CD can do another good performance, and his former teammate Amari can keep it going. On obviously Justin Herbert with the broken rib, well, fractured, I think it was, but we'll see if he performs well. I will be picking T-Corn in this matchup, but hopefully I will surprise some folks and come away with the victory. Moving on to Colin versus Michael. This one I feel will be a bit closer. Decent teams here. Colin obviously has got Kyler Murray, and then we've got Tom Brady over throwing to himself maybe over in Tampa Bay. It should be a bit better than last week. Loki, quit digging. Crazy dogs. And then Jonathan Taylor, newly acquired, and Darrell Henderson. Both guys were actually those were my running backs last year for a bit over there for Colin. And we got Allen Robinson and Hollywood Brown, George Kittle, Jacoby Myers, Michael Carter. And the Tampa Bay defense to round out Colin's team. I think I smell burgers. Next, on Michael's team, we've got Gibby and Singletary, two guys that are decent running backs, not as good of second weeks as they had first weeks, but speaking of guys not doing great last week, we got Devontae Adams enjoying that lovely Hall of Fame quarterback, Derek Carr, but actually enjoying a Hall of Fame quarterback, Courtland Sutton. We'll see if he can get things going and that Denver offense can get things turned around, pick it up a bit. Speaking of picking it up a bit, we'll see if Cole Kmet can actually catch a ball. Am I right? And then Amon-Ra, obviously he'll catch tons of balls, probably score at least 1 or 2 or 3 touchdowns, but Amon-Ra, great player. Probably love to have him there, Michael. And then rounding out the team, we've got Ramondre Stevenson and the Patriots defense, so a couple Patriots there. I will be picking Colin in this matchup, and if I had to guess, it probably won't be close. Moving us on to a couple of very solid teams. We've got Caleb versus Lincoln. Russell Wilson, just talked about him. Maybe he'll turn it around this week, get a better performance. And then we've got Alvin Kamara and James Conner, decent running backs. We'll see after missing a week if Alvin Kamara can come and be elite for you over there. Caleb, Jamar Chase and Mike Williams, both guys you had last year, both keepers for you. Jamar Chase had a bit of a down week, but there was Mike Williams who freaking did great with Keenan Allen missing on that Thursday night. And then Tyler Lockett also did really great, as well as Tyler Higbee did pretty solid. One of the better tight ends, and that's not saying much. And then we've got Sterling Shepard, the number 1 target in New York, and the Chargers defense going up against Jacksonville, who just slapped the Colts. So we'll see how they can perform after that matchup. And then we've got Carson Wentz, and he's doing pretty good. Got some good talented receivers over there in Washington, going against Philadelphia, his former team. So a bit of a revenge game for him. We'll see if he can get some revenge on them. And then Najee and Clyde, decent running backs. We'll see if they can keep things going. Clyde, and Najee. Jalen Waddle did really well, obviously. And Garrett Wilson did really well, obviously. So we'll see if they can keep it going. Mark Andrews, probably the best tight end in the league. Obviously, there's Travis, but he's getting older. But for the foreseeable future, I imagine Mark Andrews will be very solid. Juju Smith-Schuster, we'll see if he can get some more balls. They keep spreading it around over there in Kansas City. And then Jeff Wilson, the number 1 running back in San Francisco. We'll see if he gets hurt this week, with the Rams defense rounding it out, going up against the division foe, the Arizona Cardinals. I will be picking Caleb in this matchup, and I think it will be a decently close matchup. Probably closer than any of the other previously mentioned matchups. So we'll see how that goes. Moving us on to Fiala versus Adam. We've got some players. Lamar Jackson, we'll see if he can continue his elite production. Speaking of elite, DeAndre Swift is pretty good, and Dalvin Cook, we'll see if he can get things turned around. Bit shaky potentially at receiver here for you, Fiala, with Treylon Burks and DK Metcalf. And speaking of shaky, the ultimate shake master, Kyle Pitts, we'll see if he can, do better this week. Travis Etienne and Kareem Hunt, both solid running backs, both kind of took a step back this past week compared to how they were looking week 1. And the Kansas City defense going up against Indianapolis, who scored 0 points, which bodes well for them. Obviously, the best defenses don't let up any points. So, moving us over to Adam's side, we've got a pair of bangs. And bangs, I mean Bengals. Joe Burrow and Joe Mixon. Well, and they're both Joes. How crazy is that? Newly acquired Joe Mixon, I might add. Speaking of newly acquired, we've got Josh Jacobs going up against Tennessee, who was just slapped by the Bills. Speaking of newly acquired, we've got A.J. Brown, who was just acquired from the Titans in the offseason onto the Eagles. We'll see if he can bounce back and get another elite performance, hopefully, because I've got his quarterback. Speaking of newly acquired, we've got Curtis Samuel, newly acquired to Adam's team here. We'll see how well he can do, see if he can keep up what he's been doing this season thus far, and, have a great week. Speaking of having great weeks, Pat Frymuth did pretty decent last week, probably the number 1 tight end on the week, or close to, currently sitting at number 6 in PPR, so that's pretty good. And then we've got Gregory Dortch, has been pretty good. They have been down a couple receivers there in Arizona, so let's see if you can keep that going. And Rex Burkhead, decent week 1, fell down, not as great last week, so let's see if he can be a bit better this week. Which brings us to the San Francisco defense, who obviously crushed last week. They're probably, pretty good at number 1 defense, maybe. Number 15 defense. Last week they did really well, but I guess that's only good enough for 15. Anyway, for this matchup, I did pick Fiala, but I think it'll be closer than what a lot of folks think. Which moves us on to State Farm versus Bryan Farm. And the sun is out. I look so bright, and I can barely see the camera here. And it is getting nice and warm out, so I'll see if I can get inside soon. Almost done. Patrick Mahomes, pretty good quarterback. Christian McCaffrey, pretty good running back. See if those two can have performances like they are used to. And then we got Lenny. Packers had not a great run defense on Sunday night, which hopefully will change, but I don't imagine too much will change in a week. And Lenny is a pretty good runner, so we'll see if he can capitalize on that. Michael Thomas and Christian Kirk having your receivers there. Kirk has been really good so far this season, and tried to get him from you, but I got stuck with Mooney instead. Anyway, Tyler Conklin has actually been pretty decent. Currently sitting at the number 10 tight end on the season, which you probably wouldn't have expected going in. Speaking of pretty good, and you wouldn't have expected it, Miles Sanders and James Robinson, both running backs, performing very well. And then the Buffalo Bills defense, pretty good. Number 2 defense so far. Have scored over almost 40 points this season so far, so that's really good. And then over on Brian's side, we got Matty Stafford, Derrick Henry, Damian Harris. See if they can have better performances this upcoming week. Damian did good last week, but the other two not so much. Justin Jefferson also not super great. Terry McLaurin, I believe he also wasn't that great. He was all right, but his teammates scored better. Darren Waller was really good though. Chris Olave almost had a super long touchdown, but dropped it and in fact fumbled. So let's see if him and Jameis can get on the same page. And then that Denver defense going up against San Francisco. We'll see how well they can do. They've been performing all right on the season. In this matchup, I did pick State, and I think it'll be not that close. We'll just say that. Moving us on to the penultimate matchup of the week, we've got Derek versus Bruce. I believe this is one of the rivalry matchups that we have coming up in week 7. So this will be a first taste of how that matchup might shake out. We've got Josh Allen, obviously great. Nick Chubb, very, very good. Obviously great. Tony Pollard has been playing very well. And then we've got freaking Tyreek Hill, freaking great. Freaking Rashad Bateman, he was also pretty great. Receiver number 10 or 16 on the season. Dawson Knox has been all right. Actually, not really, but we'll see if he can catch on a bit this week and get some stack points from Josh Allen. Drake London and Jahan Dotson, 2 rooks. Drake London has been very solid. Kind of wish I didn't trade him away, but that just happens sometimes. And then Jahan Dotson, very good, never had him. Tried to get him, but was unlucky in doing so. Very good. And then the Cleveland Browns defense going up against Pittsburgh. That should be fun for them. Tomorrow night, in fact, well, as you're watching this or listening, tonight on Thursday night football. Moving us on to Derek's team, Kirk Cousins. Not great quarterback, not great performance. So we'll see if he can get things turned around against Detroit, which I think might actually be pretty close. David Montgomery ran all over the Packers, but didn't score that great. Didn't have a touchdown. Only got 15.6. So we'll see if he can perform. As of recording of this episode, which I like to give you a time check, it is 4:24 p.m. on Wednesday, the 21st. Derek does not have a second running back slated in, but I imagine he'll maybe Zach Moss if JK can't play. Yeah, that's not super great. But you do have Stephon Diggs, which is pretty great, and Jerry Jeudy, he is also pretty great. Had that touchdown week 1. We'll see if he can get back out onto the field and play well. And we've got Hunter Henry has not been doing all that great. So we'll see if he can get turned around. And Deontay Johnson also playing on Thursday. Pretty good for him so far. And then the teammate of Bruce's player, Devin Duvernay. We'll see if he can keep things going. He's also performing pretty decently so far on the season. The wide receiver 17. Obviously it's early, but, pretty good. But I do think Bruce is going to very easily win this matchup. Honestly, this is probably the easiest one for me to pick. No offense to either of the teams playing. But that'll bring us to the last matchup of the week, which is Abby versus Sam. Would you get out of here, Loki? Hey, stop it. These dogs, they just don't leave you alone. Which can be nice, but, in situations like this, when I'm clearly working, have no respect. Abby's team, Derek Carr, pretty good last week. Lost a close one, but we'll see if he can keep it going. Maybe he throws a bit better. He can get Devontae for a touchdown. Speaking of Devontae, former teammate Aaron Jones, very, very good last week. Aaron Jones is currently very RB4 on the season, so we'll see if he can keep that going against Tampa Bay. Cordell Patterson has been doing pretty good week 1. Week 2, not super great, but we'll see if he can return to his glory of last year. Speaking of glorious, Cooper Kupp, Deebo Samuel. I mean, you don't really got to say much about them. Deebo will probably get an increased role this rest of this couple months here with Jeff Wilson out, and now he's got Garoppolo back, which is good for him. Trey Lance is a bit of a runner, so gonna get some more checkdowns and stuff from him. Zach Ertz been doing pretty good, tight end 5 on the season, so not too bad. Also, I just realized he's got blonde hair now, which does not look good, Zach Ertz. What are you doing, my guy? Robbie Anderson, pretty good. Spell with an eye. We'll see if he can keep going and do better, maybe. And then Sammy Watkins has been doing all right. Last week he was pretty good, 12.3. We'll see if he can do better on that. And then the Dallas defense against the Giants, I'm sure they will do fine. Bringing us to Tua Tagovailoa over on Sam's team. Obviously, great performance last week. We'll see if he can keep it going against Buffalo, who has a good defense. Don't know if you know this, but the Buffalo Bills, good team. Ezekiel Elliott and Austin Eckler, your two running backs. Zeke has not quite been himself for the last couple seasons now. And we'll see how we can do against the division rival, the New York Giants. Newly acquired Austin Eckler. Not as good this season so far as you probably would have hoped, but we'll see if he can pick it up a bit. And we've got a pair of Bengals, T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd. We'll see if they can do well. T. Higgins last week, pretty solid, 19.9 from him. Could hopefully get a little bit more from T. Higgins. Hasn't been terrible, but, probably want a bit more. They're going up against the Jets, who they throw a lot. I don't know if you know, Joe Flacco, crazy guy over there. Obviously, we got Travis Kelce, Adam Thielen, a couple old boys, and Melvin Gordon's not that young either, so we'll see if those three can keep going, perform well. And then the New Orleans Saints defense will round it out against Carolina. That'll probably be a pretty good matchup for the Saints. I'm going to be picking Abby for this one, and it'll probably be pretty close if I had to guess. So that'll do it for this week's episode. It is running a bit long. It's probably because of that trade, and I don't know, the outside just gives you some more life, But, yeah, those were all the matchups. I hope everyone's having a great season so far. Please, if you have not paid, please try to do so. I don't want to be bugging people for half a season. It's just, nice if you take care of it. So, yeah, so with that, thank you. And thank you. Alrighty, yeah, so this is where they've basically been chilling the entire time I've been recording. So, we're going to do this flip. We're going to do it on Lincoln for making me so bad last week. Anyone would have beaten me, but, Lincoln's the one that actually did. So, there you go. Didn't land it. Goodbye.